Welcome back to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, as he always does, is Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you again.
Bob, great being here with you.
So a very interesting thing happened in May. Young man from Florida, last name of Abu-Salha, joins up with Jabhat al-Nusra, the al-Qaeda branch there, and commits a suicide bombing attack. Then the propagandists show us the video. What does this mean, and what does it mean going forward for us?
Well, it's significant because it's a very stark example of an American who's radicalized, decides to fight with an al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, and decides to become a suicide bomber. We haven't had a lot of American suicide bombers in the global jihadi context. We've seen them in the Somali context. This was the first one in the Syrian context. It also raises the question, the broader question of, can we track, can we know which Americans are actually traveling to Syria and potentially coming back?
And for what reason?
And for what reason? And the reality is, and we've talked about this on Flashpoints a number of times, the fight in Syria, the fight to topple Assad, is seen as a legitimate fight by many. And the atrocities that he's causing has drawn a number of young fighters, thousands from the West, with sympathies for the cause of toppling Assad. That brought this American, apparently, to the fight, and that continues to draw not just Americans, but Western Europeans and others from around the world to Syria.
So this guy Abu-Salha, he leaves the first time in 2012. Then he comes back, spends some time in the U.S., then goes back to Syria and commits this attack. The FBI is supposed to be tracking these people. How tough is it to keep track of all these movements and know which are good guys and which are bad guys?
Incredibly difficult. And the FBI will admit this. The director of the National Counterterrorism Center will admit this. It's easy to get to Syria. I mean, it's easy to get there through Turkey.
He went through Turkey.
He went through Turkey, and he's, even in his recordings and such, admitted, he didn't have much money, but he got there relatively easily. And then when you get there, you can find folks to fight with, and you can find folks who will train you. And you can get back relatively easily. Now, the FBI may know that someone has traveled, and in this case, I think they did know.
They knew he was there. They weren't sure why.
But they didn't know why.
Yeah.
Some people go for humanitarian reasons. Some people go for journalistic reasons. Who knows, right? But distinguishing why and the intent of somebody who's gone abroad and whether or not they're trained and committed to come back and attack in the U.S. is really a tricky venture, because the FBI really, despite the lore out there, isn't an MI5, right? They're not outfitted to follow each and every suspect for 24 hours, 7 days a week, if they haven't committed a crime or aren't under an investigation for having committed a crime. And so, like other cases in the past, if somebody's traveled abroad, potentially connected with a terrorist group, but we don't have evidence of it, we don't know that that's the case, the FBI is not going to track them and isn't going to know. And the problem here is he went back and committed a suicide attack.
The fear here is that this case may be the canary in the coal mine. Right. This may be okay, this attack happened over there, terrible attack, but it didn't happen here, but the next one could be here.
Right, and this raises that debate that's emerging, especially in counterterrorism circles, about what's happening in Syria, in particular the foreign fighters. Is this really a local fight? Are they going there to really just battle the Syrian forces and to topple Assad? Or is there even a small percentage of these folks who are going to return home and turn their sights on Western victims and their fellow citizens? And that's the real concern for U.S. counterterrorism officials. Do we know of the Americans who are going there to fight? And do we know if they're coming back to attack in place here in the U.S.? That's the great fear for the FBI.
Some of the counterterrorism officials will say this is their first concern right now. This is number one.
No, I think that's right. And it's shifting the focus from Yemen to Syria in that regard. And the fact is that we don't know all the foreign fighters who are going in and out, and that's a nightmare for counterterrorism officials.
Juan, thanks as always.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you next time.